Hello, it's Jimmy here. The Riley's just got here to look at a Nissan Qashqai. Okay, got the bonnet up, and she is a 1.6 DCI, so Renault engine. Okay, inside don't seem to have any sort of engine management lights on. We've got 50,000 miles on the clock, but the complaint from the customer is he bought the car and within 50 miles or so warning lights came on, and he brought it back to the dealer he bought it from. He bought it at a dealer. He said he was told they'd done a repair on it. They were a bit vague about what they'd done and gave him the car back, but within 50 miles again the light came back on, and he brought it back there again. They said they changed the EGR valve, and customer said he wasn't really too sure what they'd done. They sounded a bit not sure themselves. Again, so I'd spent 8 months at the dealership he bought it from, and it was sitting around there as well. So he then brought it to another mechanic, is what he's telling me, and the other mechanic he brought it to done a forced regen, but again within sort of a similar time the light came back. Now he's went back to the mechanic again, and what they've done is they've done a forced regen. So the customer is asking him a few questions about that. So what the customer is saying to me is he's watched my videos and he now understands how a DPF should work, and he's asked the garage, you know, why are we just doing a regen? Surely we should fix the problem. And he said, you know, that's the only gut instinct that I can find what to do. Okay, I'm using the Launch UK Euro Tab 3. We're going to get this connected to the car. Okay, so that didn't recognise it there, so we just had to manually type in the chassis number. Okay, so just some of the details of the car. X-Trail T32. Let's confirm. High speed scan. Now everything looks clear, but the car has had a regen today and he's driven about 30 miles to see me, so might not be enough time for the fault to come back if it's a block DPF. But we'll have to maybe look at some live data, so we'll get the engine started up and we're going to look at some data stream. We'll find differential pressure, soot, yeah. Okay, so we have 14.68 on grams of soot in the DPF. So when these hit 15 grams, it will either try and do a regen or trigger off the fault for a block DPF. You can see we're sitting at 22 millibars of pressure at idle, so that is high. There's a couple of other things I want to check, so let me just take those off for a minute. Soot and differential pressure, and I want to now look at the most common cause of DPF problems on these is the upstream pressure. So it can't read that correctly, and then the car just doesn't want to regen. So we're going to compare that with the engine speed. Same as engine speed, same as the Renault Traffics, basically all are the same. Anything that's got the DCI engines, they've all got the same issue. And we're idling slightly high as well, I think because it wants to maybe do a regen, and it's possibly is doing a regen. Going to give it some rev all the way up. Yep, we've definitely got an issue with the upstream pressure, because it should come immediately back down, and you can see there it's taking its time to slowly come down. So we definitely got a blockage in the pipe there. Okay, we can see there we've got some data here for the last time it done a regen. Let's have a look at some of these. DPF regeneration permission, no. So it's saying it's not, the car's not given its permission to do a regen. Soot after a regen 4.89. Time since last regen 2 hours ago. But we've got a high pressure in the DPF already, and it's had a regen 2 hours ago. So what could be the cause? We've either got a damaged DPF. The vehicle is idling slightly high. We've either got a damaged DPF, or, I mean, we've only got 50,000 miles, so it's not going to be ash build up. So yeah, we've got a damaged DPF, but it's likely that the regen process isn't working properly because of the upstream pressure reading is not correct. And I think the reason that we haven't got any faults here is, of course, like I said, because it's just came from someone who's done a regen. Well, it didn't come today. It had a regen a few days ago, but the guy drove it a couple of miles back to his home and waited for his appointment here with me today. So it's done 30, maybe 40 miles since it's had the regen. We haven't got any faults here, so nothing that would stop a regen, apart from obviously looking in the live data. I can see that the upstream pressure is not working. Okay, so just down here we have the upstream pressure sensor of the turbo. We've just disconnected the electrical connection. Now I shall try and get the clip off. So I've just squeezed the clip there to remove the sensor from the hose. Now what I will say is these hoses are quite brittle, and sometimes when you pull the sensor off you can sort of stretch the hose and they can get weak. I think what's happened to me now once or twice is customers have driven away, and then you get the light come back on, and then they come back, and I realise once you unblock the pipe, see, there's no pressure coming through this rubber tube now, even though it's brittle. But when you unblock this pipe, you've then got 1500 millibars of pressure, 2000, or maybe even up to 3000 millibars of pressure coming up there. And if that hose is weak, they can then burst, and you'll then get a fault back up for upstream pressure. So if you are doing this, it is handy to have some spare ones of these tubes, but the problem is they're very difficult to get hold of. You can't just go and grab any off the shelf. You need to order them from a dealership. Right, so my little pressure gauge here, I've dropped it and broke it, so I'd like to show you how much pressure is in there normally, but I'm going to need to get a replacement one of these tools. So what I've done for a minute just to use the tool is I've blocked off that hole with some glue, and if I pump this up, you can feel that, see it pop off. There is a lot of pressure in there, so you can see it's nice and easy to press, but once you get enough pressure in there, it gets really hard, and then it'll pop back off. So I'll just show you that again. Get this tube back down in there, connect it to the rubber hose, so it's easy, then you can feel it getting sort of stiff, and then it pops off. So it's definitely got a blockage in there. Even though I can't show you the gauge, it was my own fault, to be honest. The gauge stopped working. I think it seized up because of the rain, and I tried to give it a few taps on the van, and it just snapped off. So just in case I didn't make it clear in simple terms, this car doesn't seem to have any sort of faults with sensors or any parts that need replacing. It's got a blocked pipe that should be reading from this pressure sensor right here, so that is going to affect the DPF regens. Now we're at 14.78 grams of soot. Once that hits 15 grams of soot, again, it would either try and do the regen, or it just would try and do the regen and give up, or if it's got the fault, that would probably trigger off halfway through the regen for the pressure sensor, then it would just fail the regen. So I'm pretty sure that if we just fix this fault here, the DPF should be okay. It looks like it's able to regen on its own. The only small concern is their DPF damaged. Now obviously I know the vehicle's had multiple forced regens done, which can affect that. So I've removed that sensor. Now I've removed the rubber hose that's to it, and that leaves me with the metal pipe down there. So we're going to try and get a cable down that and clean it out. I'm going to try and use my drill. It's not working in full order at the minute, again because of the rain, but you see it's only working at a very slow speed, but we should be able to get it done. Now what I'm going to do first is attach this tube down to that sensor, and I'm going to spray some DPF cleaner in there. I've got the launch DPF cleaner in this gun here, in this little spray bottle, sorry. Now what I've done is I've sprayed into the tube here, so it's filled up. We'll let that sit there for a minute or two, just to let it soak down into the carbon. It might make it a little bit easier for us to break it up. So now we've spent some time using the drill here to get that wire down in that tube, down in that metal pipe, sorry, to clear out the blocked soot that's in there. As you can see, the drill is a little bit intermittent. It does work sometimes, but yeah, we've got that cleared out now. Now that that's clear, we can see that if we connect this to it, you can see that the flow of cleaning fluid is now going down the tube. So now we're back inside. I'm going to run the engine. We'll get the data stream back up again for the pressure and that. Differential pressure and the soot. So we do now want these to start dropping. You can see they we're already at 12. Now we want this soot grams to drop down below 6 if we can. So now with the engine running, we're going to put the rest of this fluid in. We've only put a little minor amount in with the engine off because we don't want to backfill it into the engine. It's very close to the engine, this tube, very close to the exhaust manifold, so you don't want to backfill the engine. So we'll do it with the engine running, get all of this fluid in there, and I'm pretty sure this is going to sort out this guy's problem. That's the fluid from Launch UK, DPF cleaning gun and fluid. It's connected to my compressor there at 130 psi. Okay, now all of that fluid's gone in there. We're just going to leave that disconnected for a minute, and we'll give the engine a few revs just to clear out any soot that's left over in there. So we'll hold it at 3000 RPM. See, we're down to sort of 70 millibars of pressure. See where it's at idle for a minute. Still around 10. Hold the revs back up. This should be sitting at around about, say, 2 to 6 millibars at idle, and around about 40-50 at 3000 RPM. So if it doesn't come any lower than that, we know we have some damage on the DPF. Grams of soot did rise up there a little bit, but they're coming back down now. Let's just check the temperature of the DPF. Make sure it's not doing a regen, is it? Temp upstream. Of PF, particle filter. Yeah, it's just 40 degrees, so it's not doing a regen, but the soot grams are coming down. The only other way the soot grams will come down is if it's doing a regen, but this is just bringing the soot down at a low temperature because of the cleaning fluid. So around 3000 RPM, let me just try and get that there. We're around about 60 millibars. Soot grams are coming down fast now. We are down to 7 or 8 millibars of pressure. Okay, so now I've reconnected the sensor. Start the car back up in here. Okay, now of course we've triggered off the code for the pressure sensor because we disconnected it, so we're going to have to clear that. Okay, the pressure is now down to 7, so we're going to hold the revs up a little bit and we'll take it on a bit of a drive just to confirm what everything is going to look like. So we should see now that the soot grams will drop rapidly. See there? That's with the revs up at 3000 RPM, or just about. It's really difficult to get it exact because you try and go a little bit over and then it just goes right up. So we're only at sort of 45 millibars now. It's come down even more at 3000 RPM. Now a quick little drive, you'll see we'll have some vapour coming from the exhaust for about a mile. Now if we hold the revs up around sort of 3000 again, it's even come down even more there. 34 HPAs, which is good for this type of car. So a lot of these newer Euro 6s, some of these pressure readings that I used to say, you know, before you were okay up to about 100 millibars or HPAs. but it's not the case, unfortunately. And these newer Euro 6s, they're a lot more sensitive. So if you're idling at 10 to 12 millibars of pressure, it will trigger off a DPF fault. It needs to be down sort of around somewhere between 2 to 6 millibars, and at 3000 RPM I would say it needs to be under 60 millibars maximum. So now we've got this vapor dying away a little bit. We are just about finished. So some people might say on here, well, there wasn't any faults or no fault codes there, so why did I have to do a DPF clean? It had a force regen at a garage, and this time, before the fault came back, the guy just didn't want to waste any time. He thought he'd bring it straight to me and have me look over the car. The problem with that is it's more difficult for me then to find the fault, but it just shows you as well, you don't always need a fault code to find the problem. If you've got the experience. Obviously these engines now, I've seen so many of them, and I know all of the usual culprits. So looks like we've got this car sorted out. Final result there is 3 grams of soot and 4 millibars of pressure at idle, and you can see now that the engine idle speed has come down to the correct area where it needs to be. Quick scan of the car shows there's no more faults. Okay, so that's it, we're all finished on this one, and I'll see you on the next video.